After listening to him speak before the City Council, Hudson County View got the chance to sit down with real estate developer Steve Hyman to talk about the 6th Street Embankment, a property his wife owns. I started the conversation by asking him about a recent court ruling in favor of activists seeking to have the city of Jersey City turn the property into a park.
However you're looking at it, and we look at it differently than Jersey City and the Embankment Coalition and Rails to Trails and everybody else that's involved, because we give you the honest approach. We lost the case, so to speak, and it should have been the last case in Washington, D.C., but because of the litigious people that are involved, it wasn't the last case. But the judge found something that we had been fighting with for a long time, and we finally agreed that this property was a line of rail. And it's a very esoteric term that most people don't really understand the nature of it. But the bottom line is, even though the property has been sitting fallow for 15, 20 years, there's been no rail traffic on it for 15, 20 years. It was owned by Conrail up until 2005 when my wife bought the property.
I asked Hyman whether he thought he would ultimately win the decade-long legal battle with the Embankment Preservation Coalition over the property.
Been trying to do the same thing over and over again, and they can't do it. They haven't done it, and they won't do it. And although she paid only $3 million for the property, it's certainly worth a lot more than that, and a lot more would be a minimum of $30 million today, depending on the zoning that you could get to develop it.
Hyman continued by estimating how much the property would be worth if the embankment was rezoned, similar to a nearby property in Hamilton Park, which was rezoned to 300 units per acre from 66 units to benefit a development by Kushner Real Estate Group.
If you develop the property, and you develop it not to the zoning that's there, you develop it to the highest and best use possible, it could be worth $50 or $100 million, just the ground.
Hyman also added his theory as to why Jersey City hasn't allowed him and his wife to develop the property yet.
At the end of the day, they don't want her or me to use it. And why don't they want that? Because they believe that they can it's either make a lot more money than the $3 million by acquiring it from Conrail for what they sold it for, or selling it or giving it or making a deal with one of their friends like Kushner or Barry or Mako or Mangan or Panapinto, all of whom, if they had bought the property, and by the way, they were all on a list that the railroad put out an RFP, they asked them if they wanted to bid on buying the property, and they all dropped out. So they could have had the property, and I know in my heart that if they did have it, it would have been developed already.
I followed up by asking Hyman how much he thought taxpayers had already spent on the battle over the embankment, as well as how much a potential park for the embankment could cost.
My guesstimate would be at least $5 million spent without considering the manpower that the city commands. Well, if it were a park and you want to build it onto the existing walls, it would be different from a park at grade. If it's a park on the existing walls, they've shown some plans that were like in the $15 million range to build a park, and if you connected the blocks with bridges and handicapped access and parking, be a lot more than that.
I'm Michael Shuren with Hudson County View, the eye of the community.